16th, 2019 Troy City Council meeting. This evening we are pleased and honored to have former City Council member and County Commissioner Doug Dietz do our invocation. So please rise for the invocation and remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Doug.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together this evening to listen and reflect upon the wisdom that you've given us. Please show our leaders here today to be humble and generous servants, and the petitioners before them to have wisdom in expressing their thoughts and opinions. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The December 16th, 2019 Troy City Council meeting is officially called to order. The roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Abraham.
Here.
Councilmember Brooks.
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Here.
Councilmember Pennington.
Here.
All present. First up are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have 5 of them this evening. We'll start with C1, which is Go Team Therapy, Crisis and Airport Dogs, Detroit Special Presentation of Awards, and I see Chief Dave Roberts from the Fire Department coming forward to present. Thank you, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'd actually like to introduce Tanya Perry. Tanya Perry was a former staff lieutenant with the Fire Department and is a member of the Go Team Therapy Dogs, and she has a special presentation for Fire Station number 3 members. Tanya?
Thank you, Chief. Council members, I can say that I'm no longer a resident of Troy, but I miss a lot of parts of it. But I am happy to be here in front of you. I felt that in our team, the Go Team Therapy Dogs, felt that it was very important to recognize 3 special entities within our city that have assisted us with training. The training that the Go Team Dogs do starts with 16 hours of training in which they're subjected to a number of different scenarios that they might encounter while they're providing therapy, crisis intervention, for comforting, and general activities that, for instance, exams at some of the high schools. They bring the therapy dogs into those things to help relax people and de-stress them. City Council is welcome to call upon us if you need it. You can imagine what the answer, we'll give you a brochure. You could imagine what the response is when you call and say, we have 50 dogs and their handlers who need some training, and we'd like them to ride your escalators at Somerset Collection, and we'd like them to come into Brookdale Assisted Living and meet all your residents all at one time. And, you know, the fire station, we want your guys to put their gear on and use the sirens and the horns, and oh, you know what? Tanya retired and can't afford to feed our group, so could you prepare us lunch for that day? And all 3 of these groups, for the last 3 years at least, have offered without hesitation to assist our group. So I'd like to invite 2 of our dogs and handlers here. Can you introduce yourself and your dogs?
Sit. I'm Janet Dorr. I am one of the coordinators of the Go Team Therapy Crisis and Airport Dogs for Metro Detroit and Michigan. Sutton is my 4-year-old golden retriever. She's been certified for 3 years. And in addition to the fire station, we have been asked many times to the Troy Public Library and Troy High School. They just love our dogs, and we love to help out any way we can. Next one.
Hi, I'm Linda, and I've been a member of Go Team for 2 years. And my dog is Lucky. He's a stray rescue dog, Mutt, and he loves his work. Thank you for having us tonight.
We'd like to start our presentation by calling Georgiana from Brookdale. The Brookdale communities, they have 2 buildings in Troy, and again, they have invited our dogs and handlers in for at least 3 years and maybe longer. And Georgiana, we would like to present you with a plaque to honor your buildings and your staff and the residents and tell you how much we appreciate. This is a picture of us all standing out with 2 of your residents, one of whom had a birthday on the year that we went and attended this. So on behalf of the Go Team, thank you very much, Georgiana.
Thank you.
Vince and Tom from Somerset. Vince is the general manager. Vince, I was just talking to Vince Werg. I said, John Mizek is the general manager of Somerset. Tom Fisher is the security person, so sorry about that.
That's fine.
When you get old, sometimes the concussion, it was the
There you
concussion. Right, Chief? So Somerset Collection, there's a picture of our dogs walking up and down the escalators, which is one of the things that they have to pass. And I can't tell you the number of people who stand in awe of all these dogs going up and down the escalators. But we also utilize their elevators and the stairwells, and they've just been awesome. And some of our dogs you might find walking around this Christmas season, the holidays, and they'll be there to comfort you if you've spent too much money. So, John, Tom, on behalf of the Go Team Therapy Dogs Detroit, I'd like to present you with this award for our appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank you
We're
so
very
much.
honored.
Thank you. And last but not least, Fire Station number 3. I think you have some representatives here. Come on up, guys. For more than 3 years, Fire Station 3 has spent money from their funds allocated by the city for them to eat and have events at their station to keep the firefighters interested. They've spent some of that money on us, feeding us, as well as their own time that they volunteer to provide training and an environment for our dogs where they can be safely exposed to what they would encounter at an emergency scene. So Fire Station 3, we are indebted to you for that practice and for all the guys that show up and cook for us and feed us, as well as stand on the ladder truck and pose for a wonderful picture with our dogs. Our dogs love you, and my understanding is the guys that show up also love our dogs. So thank you. And they also provide us with a meeting spot because we have 50 handlers. And so we've met at the station several times. Thank you for your hospitality, Station 3, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much, Council. And again, I hope you recognize the importance of these 3 entities. I'm sure there are many other businesses and groups in the city that are just as wonderful. We wanted to take the time to recognize these. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Brookdale and Somerset and Station 3. Well-deserved awards, and really thank you for all you're doing for everybody in need. And Councilmember Hoderick does need that phone number, as she says. So, thank you.
I'll give you my card.
We're on Facebook.
I didn't get any pictures of the dogs. I mean, that's the winning picture. But, all right, next on the agenda is C2, and it's on behalf of the City of Troy's employees, Casual for a Cause program for the months of July and August. Community Affairs Director Cindy Stewart will be presenting a check, and I see Nancy Morrison from the Troy Community Coalition coming forward as well.
Hi, Nancy. Hi, Cindy. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's my pleasure once again that the employees raised a lot of money. We raised $600 for the Troy Community Coalition because we wore jeans on Fridays. So on behalf of the employees, Nancy?
Well, thank you so much. And on behalf of the Troy Community Coalition, we want to thank the City of Troy employees for being involved in Casual for a Cause. We greatly appreciate that, and I feel like they know our worth, and we will put this money to good use. We'll put it right back into our prevention efforts. So happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. next on the agenda is C3, and in order to do the proclamation for C3, I'll move a resolution to waive Rule Number 8, Proclamations and Congratulatory Certificates of the Rules of Procedure for City Council. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby waives Rule Number 8, Proclamations and Congratulatory Certificates of the Rules of Procedure for the City Council to allow the presentation of proclamation to recognize the Jacob J. Love Foundation 10th anniversary of giving to the community.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, that we approve the resolution to waive Rule Number 8 as printed in the agenda. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion carries. So now C3 is a proclamation to recognize the Jacob J. Love Foundation 10th anniversary of giving to the community. Meet me down at the podium, please. So everybody can see you. Yeah, come on this way. We'll follow them. I gotta be close to the mic so it picks it up, right? So, the City of Troy is very pleased to present this proclamation to recognize the Jacob J. Love Foundation 10th anniversary of giving to the community. Here, come over a little bit this way. I feel like I'm standing in front of you funny, and I will read this proclamation to the record because I think it's a very moving story and a beautiful thing that you've done for our community in spite of a tragedy. So, whereas Jacob Joel Love, the beloved son of Joel and Denise Love, was diagnosed with aplastic anemia in October 2008 while a senior at Troy High School, Jake had a bone marrow transplant in February 2009 and fought a very courageous 9-month battle. Jake passed away in 2009 at the age of 18. Throughout his life, Jake inspired many people, family, friends, fellow band members. I believe you played the drums?
Yes, I did.
Drums. Good drummer right here. Doctors and nurses by living a lifestyle of quiet courage, inspiration, and the need to live, laugh, and love every day. And whereas, although Jake was unable to attend Troy High School for his senior year after his diagnosis, he was able to graduate. In June 2009, Troy High Principal Mark Dajiak and Jake's counselor Jesse Kraft wore caps and gowns with Jake and conducted a graduation ceremony at U of M's Mott Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor. Family, doctors, and nurses were in attendance. And whereas Jake had dreamed of pursuing a career in aviation and wanted to become a pilot, he had been accepted to Michigan State, Purdue, Bowling Green, Western Michigan, and Oakland University, but Michigan State, where his older brother Billy attended, was always his favorite. Mr. Billy. Thank you.
Okay.
And whereas Jake was the center, snare, and drum section leader of Troy High School's marching band and had a boundless enthusiasm for music, during the course of his illness, he received tremendous support from the Troy band and high school community. And whereas the Jake Effect Fund was established to help pass along his inspiration, the Jacob J. Love Foundation provides an annual scholarship for a Troy High School band student to further his or her musical education. The recipient of the Jacob Love Scholarship is chosen on the basis of need and a demonstration of the qualities and character that Jake exemplified. And whereas 2019 is the 10th anniversary of Jacob Love's passing, during the past 10 years, Jake's family and friends have kept his memory alive, passing on the Jake Effect through the Jacob J. Love Foundation. The foundation recently expanded to include donations to the Rainbow Connection and the U of M Survival Fright. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy hereby recognizes the amazing contributions the Jacob J. Love Foundation has made throughout our community to celebrate the Jake Effect by the 19th scholarships they have awarded from 2010 to 2019. And whereas, be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy calls upon our citizens to keep Jacob Love's memory alive by taking part in their annual Bowling for the Band fundraiser held each December. Let us all pass on the Jake Effect to the Jacob J. Love Foundation. This is presented the 16th day of December, 2019. It's signed by myself and all members of City Council. We, obviously, it's been a difficult 10 years, I'm sure, but what you're doing for our community is truly remarkable. And is the fundraiser, has it happened yet?
It's Friday.
Friday. So this Friday, December 20th.
Yep.
Maybe I'll have to give some details in a minute. But I present this to you on behalf of Troy City Council. Again, we thank you for what you've done for our community, and we know it's not always easy, but it's definitely worth it. So
Thank you for the recognition.
Well, I just wanted to say that we have been extremely fortunate to receive the support from not only the people from Troy, but our friends, our family, especially Troy High School, their music department, including Mr. Nutting and Mr. Greenwood. The support has been coming from the community for a long time, and we appreciate that, and we hope that the support continues. As we say, the Bowling for the Band fundraiser is Friday at 5 Star Lanes, starting at 7 o'clock, and we wish to see all you out there. And I want to thank the mayor and the council for this wonderful proclamation and a very, very nice early Christmas gift. Thank you.
Special thanks to Councilmember Hoderick also for bringing this to our attention to make sure it's brought to your attention. Next on the agenda is C4, Troy Family Days Recap, presented by Doug Tietz from the Troy Community Foundation as the chairman.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Doug Tietz. I'm the chairman of the Troy Community Foundation, and I'm here on behalf of 300 volunteers, about 40 different community groups, and also to reflect on warmer days in the city of Troy. Here to talk about Troy Family Days 2019, the 50th anniversary. As part of our lease with the city to use the land, we're to provide an annual update and how things went and how things are looking to be going in the future. And 2019 could be described as a couple things. It's weather dependent. It's reserve fund is critical to Troy Family Days being a success, and it's truly a great partnership between the city and the Troy Family Days Committee and the Troy Community Foundation. It's weather dependent because the first Troy Family Days back in 1969, they had a rain out. And to commemorate that being the 50th anniversary, we decided to have Thursday, Friday, and Sunday be rainy, and it did. It was horrible. Many of you were there, I know, so you can remember those fond, moist hours. And in fact, on Friday, we had a vendor that had been at Troy Family Days for 40 years, and he said it was his worst performing day ever. He made $100 for his day's work. And it was our worst day ever as far as revenue, admission revenue, and ride revenue. But there's a certain glory in when it's the worst of times. It can also be the best of times. And Saturday was exactly that. The sun came out, it dried up, and people came out of their homes and went to Troy Family Days. We had an all-time high turnout that day, and it really was a success for the community. I think the community, we're right at about 20 to 25,000 people are attending it every year. And the number one feedback we get is people know about Troy Family Days, they just want to know when is it. So those yard signs and large corner signs are a huge benefit to actually making it a success. As far as strong partnership with the city, once again, want to be thankful for Kurt Bovensteep and his team, Mark Miller and the team, Lori and the whole crew for everything that you do. I think a couple things that really come to mind are, number one, helping with the signage. That is a huge help for our festival. The festival needs to let people know it exists. But number two, I think, is something that you wouldn't see necessarily, is we've done a lot of electrical improvements in the area, so there's less gasoline and less generators going. Gasoline is a problem because it can also turn into fire very quickly, so it's a big improvement that we've made through improvements and so forth. We're looking forward to the 51st annual Troy Family Days, September 17th through the 20th. Would love to have you join us for the opening ceremonies on the 17th at 6 p.m. You know, get it on your calendar now, I guess. And for the 51st, we're going to be rolling out a 3K, well, that might be a 3K race, a 5K race this year. So bring your running shoes and join us Saturday morning. So with all that said, if there are any questions, but we're here to say thank you and glad to be partners with you.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions from anybody on council? Or comments? Thank you. In spite of the rain, it was a very successful festival when I was there. I know there was a lot of volunteers from different organizations throughout the city too that helped make it a smooth success.
Absolutely. We had 40 different groups represented. So thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is C5, a legislative update from Representative Padma Kupa.
Good evening, Mayor Baker, Mayor Pro Tem Dave Hamilton, Councilwomen Abraham, Hodorek, Brooks, and Galt, and Councilman Pennington. Glad to see you all here, and glad to be here to give my final update for the year. It's my fourth update from Lansing. I'm very grateful to be the representative for this phenomenal district, Troy and Clawson, and I just wanted to give you a brief glimpse into what we've done for the year. This year, in House District 41 alone, we have answered 3,000 constituent outreaches, whether it's by phone, by email, or by regular mail, and we've responded to their concerns. I, in particular, introduced 12 bills and co-sponsored 327. We knocked 15,000 doors, and we held 5 town halls. The 5th one was this past Thursday. Session completed on Wednesday, and on Thursday we held a tele-town hall, which is a new format where the call comes to you and then you can participate, and then we had an online presentation. It was all about school funding, and we will have those up online on the website at coupa.housedems.com. So if you missed it, you will get that information, but it has a lot to do with school funding because we do have some issues ahead of us in 2020, so it would be helpful to have that information. We also held 55 in-district events between coffee hours, town halls, meetings, attending senior center events, and our last event of the year was actually at Clawson Senior Center on Friday, and we had a cookie exchange and cookie recipe exchange. So if you're interested, I have some of them here. This particular sheet should be in everybody's Troy Times. That way it has important phone numbers, also the information I just said, and also what some of our legislative priorities. And I will conclude by saying that we worked on budgets. It was a very long, drawn-out process. The last time I was here, we were still in negotiations. We did pass 2 supplemental budgets, Senate Bill 152 and 154, that restored a number of items for funding, but our school funding still falls short of barely meeting inflation. We did include, though, and restored funding for early literacy teacher coaches, for school safety grants, and also for a number of other PFAS testing, for restoring funding to autism services, senior citizen programming. However, we do not have funding for Pure Michigan. We do expect to see back in January, when we're back in session, that we will be doing additional supplemental budgets still being negotiated, and hopefully that will be one of the items that comes back. As far as what did we do, public acts, what have we introduced? We had, in 2019, completely by every member of the legislature, we introduced 578 bills, of which 20 of them became public acts. The rollouts included civil asset forfeiture reform, major criminal justice reform, including reforming expungement, increasing the funding for the wrongful imprisonment compensation fund. We enacted the raise the age of juveniles. We were one of the last states to do so, so that a 17-year-old is not tried as an adult. We enacted legislation that would allow for the parole of medically frail prisoners, and we expanded access to opioid antagonists for local units of government like the City of Troy and Clawson. We have also done some legislation to improve FOIA and LARA to increase transparency at the state level. We also passed some bills in response to the Larry Nassar scandal to prevent and help victims of sexual abuse. And we codified the Wayfair versus South Dakota decision, closing a major tax loophole for in potential funding for Michigan schools. However, we had a contentious vote that passed where we allowed the Switch Data Center to not pay its back taxes last Wednesday. It passed by 55 to 54. One member was out, but we did allow them to not pay the back taxes on an increased millage in the school district that they're in. I look forward to being back here in 2020 to give you legislative updates throughout the year, as I have done this year. And as always, please look on my website for where people can come meet me. Reach out to me via email, padmakoopa@house.mi.gov, or by phone at 517-373-1783. I always enjoy hearing from constituents, especially when they're my city council members.
Thank you.
Or mayor.
Any questions for Ms. Koopa? Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Thank you, Representative Koopa, for everything you've done. Is there any word on the street about revenue sharing or road funding? I know those are big name topics, but I know we haven't seen much movement there.
Sure. As far as road funding, they said that we would discuss it in the new year. I know that many of the business people that were at the Mackinac Policy Conference said that they were going to fund our schools and fix our roads. However, we have not seen a significant increase in the schools. Hopefully we will see something for the roads. As far as revenue sharing, not many people in Lansing are speaking about this issue. I have been keeping the drumbeat going, because I know that if we want to help our cities through a next recession, we must do something on revenue sharing. I was fortunate to be the only sitting legislator at the table at a meeting of stakeholders in November. When we were on break, I actually went to Lansing to work on this issue, and the organization that convened it, Lincoln Institute for Land Use, out of Massachusetts, came. I invited one of my good mentors in the community, Robin Beltramini, to join me in that conversation, and we are still continuing the issue, because this is revenue sharing is even more complicated than school funding in some ways, and to unravel the damage that we've done with the difference between statutory funding and constitutional revenue sharing will take a lot more thinking heads to come together and solve it. But yeah, I'm hopeful that we have the momentum in the local government committee. I serve on energy and local government and municipal finance committees, and it is a topic that is near and dear to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. So we're starting to talk about it. First, you have to acknowledge that it's an issue, and then you can actually take some time to address it. And I think that's where we are, is that people are starting to realize. Gary Wolfram, we have a municipal caucus. In addition to the committees, I belong to several caucuses, and one of the caucuses is the local government caucus, convened by Jim Lauer and Jim Ellison. Jim Ellison is the former mayor of Madison Heights, of Royal Oak, and he's the state rep for Royal Oak and Madison Heights. Jim and Jim, Representative Lauer and Representative Ellison, convened this, and one of the speakers was Gary Wolfram, who is from the Hillsdale Policy Group, and he basically said we will fix a lot of our problems if we fix this issue. When somebody who's a senior in the field, as he is, says that, I think that there's hope that we'll get movement and traction on that issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays to everybody.
You too. That concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations. There are no carryover items, no public hearings this evening, so we move on to F, public comment for items on the agenda. I see one person has signed up, Aaron Green, who wishes to speak on C4. Aaron, I know you know the rules, but you have 3 minutes. Yellow light means you have 1 minute left, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Hello, Mayor. Hello, Council. It's a lovely evening to be here. It's actually quite nice for this time of year, and I really appreciate that the snow has melted away. I know some people would like a white Christmas. I'll take a thaw. But I'm up here for the Summer Fest because a friend of mine brought to my attention, I wasn't able to make it this year, but as wonderful as Troy Days truly is, there was one vendor who's apparently been here for a few years and has had this come up other places, which which troubles me. I am a lover of animals, as I think we all were. I think we saw that this evening. Dogs, cats, whichever. But one of the vendors that comes is essentially an animal interaction experience. And they're wild animals that they bring. They don't bring cats and dogs that are trained for it and that have been bred for it for centuries, millennia. They bring wild captured birds and other animals that people then are supposed to go in and sort of pet and interact with, including small children. Well, as far as I know, there haven't been any injuries to say, kids. The flip side of that is that it's a fairly cruel experience. They put the animals in extremely small containers. They put them on the road, something that they have no ability to cope with. There's no reason to process that. It's difficult enough for a lot of our domesticated animals to take them, between places, whether that's up north or even to the vet. I have a mile down the road, and it's the hardest drive of my life, taking them as the cat yowls. But doing that to a wild creature is inhumane, and then doing that all day is a real problem. I think that we care deeply about the animals and the resources in this city, and we would not be the only ones who had stepped up to do something about this, which I would really like council to consider. There are other municipalities in the area, Ferndale comes to mind, where they've specifically banned this sort of abuse of animals in this regard. And that's not to say that these people are sitting out there trying to abuse their animals. I'm sure they're trying to do their best, but the reality is that trying to merge these two things to square that circle is not reasonably feasible. It's not a zoo, it's a petting zoo. And the space that and that on wheels. And doing that to the animals is not appropriate, and it's not a good way to encourage people to interact with creatures that shouldn't be captive this way. And so I'd like that to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. I don't see that anybody else has signed up this evening, which leads us to City Council, City Administration response and reply to public comment. I'm going to start. Say, Aaron, thank you for your passion for bringing that forward. I did see an email about that closer to Troy Days. I don't remember who it was from, but someone in the community did reach out. It's too bad Mr. Teets left. He just missed him because it could have been a good conversation to have with him as well. I would think, regardless of what City Council can or will do, certainly the Troy Community Foundation could play a role in that as well, and probably quicker and easier than Council can. But we definitely something we can talk about and look at if Council so wishes. But Aaron, thank you again for always coming up and speaking your mind and your truth, and we appreciate that. And I'll definitely look into it on my end, and I'm sure others will as well. So, anybody else? Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Thank you. Yeah, I would just give my consent for city staff to take a look at that and see what our options are to see what we can do about it. Because I've heard from other residents as well that had issues with this too. So.
Anybody? Is there a consensus to at least ask the city attorney and city management to look at what kind of potential ordinance we could put forward, or if it's something we want to look at, or some options? I think you see some nodding heads. But does that make sense to you, or do you understand your marching orders?
It does, yes, it does. I'm just looking at the workload, and it might take us a little bit of time to get to that, because it's an added.
Troy Days is until September 17th, so. City Manager Miller.
Mr. Mayor, to clarify, are you talking about an ordinance or provision in the agreement with the foundation, or both?
Options, any all above would be great, and maybe one is easier than the other and just as effective. So any options you can provide would be great. Okay, thank you. Thanks again, Aaron. There are no postponed items this evening, so we move on to regular business. First up are mayoral appointments. I have a couple this evening. So to the Global Troy Advisory Committee, I'd like to appoint Mayor Ethan Baker to the City Council term, Sunil Sekri to the term that expires October 30, 2021, Emily Nacy to the term that expires October 30, 2022, and Carolina Noguez Ortiz to the term that expires October 30, 2022.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we appoint those 4 individuals to the Global Troy Advisory Committee as spoken into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. That concludes mayoral appointments this evening. We move on to city council appointments, and I defer to Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got 3 different boards here. We'll start with Troy City Council appoints Mark Ozarzak to the Employee Retirement System Board of Trustees and Retiree Healthcare Benefits Plan and Trust to the term expiring December 31st, 2022 for the defined benefit retiree non-voting member position.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton and supported by Councilmember Abraham that we appoint Mark Ozarzak to the Employees Retirement System Board of Trustees, Retiree Healthcare Benefits Plan and Trust for the term that expires December 31st, 2022. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries, and thank you for your service.
Next up, Troy City Council appoints Harak Chanda to the Historic District Commission for the term that expires March 1st, 2021.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton and supported by Councilmember Brooks that we appoint Harak Chanda to the Historic District Commission for the term that expires March 1st, 2021. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries, and we again thank Harak Chanda for that serving in that role.
And lastly, Troy City Council appoints Glenn Lapin to the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, SEMCOG, to the alternate delegate position that expires November 8th, 2021.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton and supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt that Troy City Council appoints Glenn Lapin as the alternate to the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, SEMCOG, for the term that expires November 8th, 2021. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Motion carries. Again, we thank Mr. Lapin for his continued service in that role. Next up are mayoral nominations. I have 3 this evening. To the Planning Commission, I'd like to nominate Mariana Parakis for the term that expires December 31st, 2022, Thomas Krent for the term that expires December 31st, 2022, and Sadiq Rahman to the term that expires December 31st, 2022.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Pennington, that we nominate Mariana Parakis, Thomas Krent, and Sadek Rahman to the Planning Commission for the terms that expire December 31st, 2022. Any discussion? I actually just wanted to say, Dr. Barbara Fowler previously served on the Planning Commission, and she served she was a replacement to fill Don Edmonds' expired term, the rest of his term after he passed away. So we thank Dr. Fowler for her service to the Planning Commission, for fulfilling that role and stepping up and doing her community service after Don's passing. And she'd come back and done more service in our city after having served for many years with the school district. So we thank Dr. Fowler for her role. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes. I would like to nominate to Building Code Board of Appeals Matthew German to the term expiring January 1st, 2025 that is currently held by Andrew Schuster, who requested not to be reappointed.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton and supported by Councilmember Abraham that we nominate Matthew German to the Building Code Board of Appeals for the term that expires January 1st, 2025. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. Anything further? That's all. We move on to I3, which is a request for closed session. Councilmember Pennington.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move I3, request for closed session as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Pennington, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve I3, a request for closed session as printed. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion carries. I4, 2020 City Council meeting schedule. I see that Assistant City Manager Bob Bruner is slated to make this presentation, so I turn it over to Mr. Bruner.
Thanks, Your Honor. Last month, the City Council scheduled special meetings for orientation, strategic planning, and personnel evaluations. Tonight, we're here with a proposal for a special joint meeting date, joint meeting of the City Council and the Planning Commission to be held on Tuesday, or I'm sorry, last time it was held was February 20th, 2018. The meeting date that we're proposing is Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. Now, in the time between when I prepared the recommendation and today, realized a couple things. One is that the last special meeting in 2018 was held at 6 o'clock on a Monday before a regular meeting. So that meeting was limited to 90 minutes. And so tonight provided a alternative resolution where you could schedule the meeting for 7 o'clock, which I think is more convenient for a lot of folks than 6 o'clock. And we're also proposing having the meeting over at the community center rather than here in the boardroom, which is a small room, even when it's just the city council, and when it's a joint meeting, we got to move in smaller chairs and that sort of thing. So you should have that alternative resolution at the desk tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bruner. Any questions for Mr. Bruner? Councilmember Pennington.
I'll move I4, 2020 City Council meeting schedule as printed.
The substitute sheet or the one that was in the agenda?
Substitute sheet.
Okay.
Any dates on it. Thanks.
All right. Moved by Councilmember Pennington and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton that we approve I4 2020 City Council meeting schedule as substituted by the yellow sheet. Just to be clear, the meeting will be at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 4th, 2020 at the Troy Community Center. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Bruner, for wrangling all of us cats for that, right? It should be a good meeting, so looking forward to it. Next on the agenda is I5, amended and restated interlocal service agreement between Troy and Clawson for dispatch and lockup services. Be introduced by City Attorney Lori Grigg Bloom.
Yes, thank you. And I would also indicate that Lieutenant Harden is here, as is Police Chief Nastasi, and they may be able to answer questions if there are any questions as well. But this is really just a restatement and an amendment of a contract that we've had with the City of Clawson since 2005. This does allow for an automatic increase based on the CPI, so we no longer would have to do that negotiation of the price that we're going to be charging. And also, we've removed some of the provisions that were no longer applicable and just done a cleanup of it. So City of Clawson is expected to meet tomorrow. Their city administration has recommended approval, and our city administration is recommending approval.
Thank you. Any questions for City Attorney Bloom or any of our representatives here? Councilmember Abraham.
I will move I5 amended and restated interlocal service agreement between Troy and Clawson for dispatch and lockup services as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham and supported by Councilmember Hoderick that we approve I-5, amended and restated interlocal service agreement between Troy and Clausen for dispatch and lockup services. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you for your work on that. Next up on the agenda is I-6, Ryan Wolf v. City of Troy, also introduced by City Attorney Lori Grieg Bloom.
Yes, thank you. This is a proposal, a proposed settlement, and I would just indicate that this is in no way an admission of liability. This is basically a business decision. So it's looking at the costs of defense and the risks that are inherent in litigation. So City Administration is recommending approval of this settlement agreement to end this case, which right now there is a trial date that's currently set for January 9th. So we do recommend approval. I would also just indicate Stacy Belisle is in the audience. She's our outside counsel. I think she would prefer not to address any questions because it is pending litigation, but she is here if there are some questions from counsel.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
I'm just going
Or would you like to move it? Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and move. I move I-6, Ryan Wolf versus City of Troy as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton that we approve I-6, Ryan Wolf v. City of Troy. Any discussion? Councilmember Hoderick.
I just want to clarify that this is part of, the process that we've gone through to essentially clean up what we've had to clean up since the removal of our former city manager, Brian Kishnick. And, it's been an era for us to go through, and this is part of getting through that era. And it will be good to me to be able to know and understand personally that we've performed our fiduciary responsibility and worked as hard as we can to continue to restore the integrity and ethics of the city. And for that reason, I will be voting yes on this.
Anybody else? Thank you, Councilmember Hoderick. It's tough to talk about pending litigation, so I think you threaded the needle pretty well there. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
No.
Councilmember Abraham?
No.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Stacy, for being here. Thank you for all your work. Next is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull any item from the consent agenda this evening? Councilmember Abraham.
I'll move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
I just wanted to bring up J4A, which is approval to expend budgeted funds for our Trails and Pathway program at Firefighters Park and Sylvan Glen Lake Park. I know our residents are hungry to continue building our trails and pathways, and this is the next step in that process, and I was very happy to see this on there, and I look forward to keeping that project going.
Thank you. Agreed. Any other discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Motion carries. If you're here on a consent agenda item this evening, they've all been approved as printed. There are no memorandums and future council agenda items to discuss this evening, so we move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. We see one person has signed up, Tony Kappas. He's been here a long time. You were here early, so come on down. 3 minutes you have. If you've read the rules, the light will turn yellow when you have a minute left.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, I appreciate you listening to me today. I've been a property property owner here in the city of Troy for 27 years. I've been every corner of the city. I love the city, wonderful place to live. But I have to tell you, right now, our safety is dwindling dramatically, not for the people, the citizens, but for our pets. Our pets are no longer safe in our backyards. The city has a coyote issue that nobody seems to be willing to address. I spoke to the city clerk's office. I spoke to Parks and Rec. I spoke to the police department. Every one of them pointed me to the state of Michigan, saying it was a state of Michigan issue, wildlife preservation, that they did not want to handle or touch it. So after, and I'm quite sure every one of you knows all the red tape trying to get through the city, the state departments, but finally getting through the DNA, the wildlife preservation area, finally got a hold of the people responsible in the state, and they told me without questionable without question, they said, if you have an issue, shoot the animal. There are no restrictions whatsoever in the state of Michigan on killing a coyote any time of the year. I can't do that. I'd love to do that because I have a piece of property that I'd love my dogs to enjoy. But the reality is the city of Troy forbids me from using either a gun or a bow within the city limits. So I'm asking the council, you've tied my hands. You've given me nothing that I can do to protect my animals, protect the area that I live in from these coyotes, and I'm told that the council in the city refuses to do anything. So I'm sorry. We don't know, to me, is not a good answer. We don't know what to do. Doesn't help the issue. It continues to make it so that it's an unsafe place to have my animals. I'd really like somebody to give me some guidance as to how to resolve this issue, because it's getting worse. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kappas. I appreciate your passion on that issue. I know we all do it. Probably more, I've heard a lot of issues during this last campaign season, development and transparency, but coyotes were the other hot thing that people are talking about. It's a big concern for a lot of our neighbors and residents because it does seem that there's more and more, and like you said, nobody's willing to step up and do anything about it. City Manager Miller and I attend monthly mayor dinners at the South Oakland County Mayors Association, and I think it was right after I got elected. The conversation among some of the other city administration and city mayors was this very thing. It's not just Troy, it's a lot of the communities in Oakland County, and there was some talk about maybe trying to put something together and going to the county executive and saying, hey, let's come up with something because people are not satisfied with, us not doing anything, right? We do have an ordinance that prohibits killing any animals, whether with gun or bow, like you said. That's obviously there for good reason. For other purposes, I don't know where we go from here as a council or as a city administration, but I do hear quite a bit that maybe we need to try to find some resolution or form some partnership with some agency in the county or the state to see if we can actually take action. Several years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we had a presentation which was a very thorough presentation about the risks and what we can and can't do, but I think the problem has increased quite a bit since then, and inaction doesn't help anybody. I understand your concern, and I thank you for coming forward. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, the rules prohibit us from having continued conversation, but I hear you, and we can talk more afterwards for sure. I don't know if council, I don't know how we tackle this issue. Perhaps if city management could see if there are any options or any other, something we can at least look at. If there's consensus to give direction in that regard, just at least start with a memo or a report as to maybe what other communities or counties. I mean, Michigan's a big state. There's got to be somebody who's thinking about doing something. If you could, that would be great. Councilmember Hoderick.
I do remember when we discussed this a few years ago, that in the meantime,
Of course, you can call the police department if you see coyote that you're worried are presenting a danger in your midst. Any safety issue anyone's having, whether it be a raccoon that suddenly seems rabid or whatnot, if your safety and security is at risk, that's what our police department is here for, and it's an appropriate phone call to make. I know that's inadequate for how many you're seeing, and that you'd probably like to just eradicate them from your backyard if you have dogs. But know that in the moment, in the here and now, that's an immediate, resource to you if you need help. That was our discussion several years ago, and as I recall, Councilman Pennington had a personal experience even with a coyote in your driveway that wouldn't move. And
yeah, that's my wife. But if you call the police, unless it's emergency, they're just going to tell you to call animal control. It's not an issue that the police will handle unless it's unless someone is in danger, and there hasn't been an instance in Michigan of the coyotes attacking a child. So until that happens, unfortunately, it's turned over to the Oakland County Animal Control. It's who would get the call.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
I just want to echo some of the comments that have been made, and also tell you that as someone who owns a dog who could potentially be vulnerable, that I share your frustration and your concern. And I do want to see what we can do. I'm concerned that everything that I've heard and read about the nature of coyotes makes it just a very difficult problem to tackle. But even with that in mind, I don't think we should just, throw up our hands and say we can't do anything. I agree with Mayor Baker that we should look to see what we can do. I've heard from constituents some particularly disturbing stories about a friend who had a very large dog, and you think that the big dogs are fine, but they're not. There were 2 coyotes that were basically stalking a very large dog. And I would, frankly, if I had small children, I would be concerned about letting them outside by themselves without somebody watching or a weapon to scare away the coyotes, which obviously, as you pointed out, we can't use guns or bows. There are probably other resources, air horns, things like that you could use to try to, in the meantime, to try to give yourself some protection. But I just wanted to make sure, I do share your frustration and concern, and I think we need to try to do something. I'm not sure what it is that we can do, but.
Anyone else? Councilmember Abraham?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This issue isn't limited to Troy, certainly, but we're seeing a lot more of it, particularly as there's development in the community. There's less places for the coyotes to hide, and so they've become a lot more prevalent, or at least noticeable. Because it is such a regional issue, it seems like this is something that we should engage the county, or at least other cities in the surrounding area. Even in Macomb County, I imagine Sterling Heights has a very similar problem, Warren, et cetera. I would really like to see an interregional solution to this, because I think every city going off and doing something on their own won't be as impactful as if we were to coalesce around this mutual issue and just resolve it, because nothing is not the answer. Having every resident go out with traps or bows is probably not the answer, but there's something in between, and we got to find it. So I would be supportive of a interregional, inter-city, inter-county type of solution.
Anyone else? Got that? All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming forward and sharing your concerns with us. They're definitely felt up here as well. Next on we did City Council, City Administration response. Move on to Council referrals. We do have N1, Council referral from Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, so I will defer to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a resolution I'm going to move. I just wanted to open this topic up to discussion with City Council and staff. In the last election, we saw actually our turnout go down from a 29% turnout of registered voters in Troy in 2017 to 25 or 6% in 2019. And that with the new voting rules, with expanded absentee, with the ability to do same-day registration, I was a little disappointed in that. And it's a personal passion of mine that I think as many people as possible should participate in the voting process. It lets your representatives represent you better. It gives you a voice. So I am open to look. I wanted to see if there was a consensus of council, if we could empower the city clerk and city staff to come up with new solutions to expand voting in Troy, whether that is efforts to expand our permanent absentee voting list, whether that's efforts to expand voting registration, and also to bring people out in the polls, particularly in the local elections when turnout is typically lower. Some of the ideas I've seen other municipalities do are allowing residents to sign up for permanent absentee or absentee voting via text, voter registration efforts at schools, or more outreach efforts to inform residents about upcoming elections. So I just wanted to open up the discussion to other council members if there's any ideas they're interested in, if they are willing to give consensus to have Clerk Dixon or city staff provide different options with estimation of costs and what they think is effective. I'm not the expert here. The clerk is definitely the expert here, and I'm willing to do what it takes to make sure Troy residents' voices are heard.
Thank you. Any comments on N1? Thoughts? I will. I appreciate you bringing the topic forward. Nothing drives turnout like a charter amendment, right? That's 2017 probably had some inflated numbers for that, right? And I think 2015 was down closer to 20 or 21%. So we are up. I think you're just seeking consensus this evening to ask for some potential options from the city clerk and city management, not to expend any funds or anything, but just to learn. Right. I would give my consensus for that. I don't know about others. Looks like there's enough. City Clerk Dixon, do you understand what you're being charged with?
Actually, yes. And I was going to say that I would also like to prepare a report for council to let you know what we already do, because we already do a lot of those things. So I can give you some update. I'll work with Mr. Miller and Mr. Bruner and do a report for council detailing all of that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton. Thank you. Next up is council comments. Does anybody have council comments this evening? Really? Councilmember Abraham?
This is our last council meeting of the year, so I just wanted to wish my colleagues here at the table, city staff, residents, a very happy holiday season, whether you're celebrating Hanukkah or Christmas, Kwanzaa, or just ringing in the new year. Please be safe. Celebrate the good times that you had in 2019, or be happy to close out the year if it wasn't such a great one, and look forward to a brighter 2020. Please be responsible as you celebrate. We'd hate for the year to end and a new one to start on a sad note because of a drunk driving incident. So please be safe, enjoy yourself, and I look forward to working with everyone here next year.
Else? All right. Councilmember Pennington?
No, I will definitely wish everyone a safe and wonderful holiday season. Yes, it's actually been a pretty good year. We moved through a lot of items in City Council. Next year, unfortunately, is an election year, so it's for the country. So it's going to be another contentious year, unfortunately. But year of transition and moving forward for us.
Anyone else? Nobody else cares to wish us a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. That's fine. I mean, maybe it's assumed. I don't know. But like, two of you will get presents this year.
We care.
Yeah. I will. Nancy Morrison is still here from the Troy Community Coalition. Since you brought up responsible behavior at the holidays, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me making a plug for the Troy Community Coalition's holiday pledge, which is to pledge not to abuse alcohol or drugs during the holiday season. I think that's a very reasonable pledge, and I know that many people have signed up or emailed in response. And Nancy, if they wanted to sign that pledge, it's at the how can they get to that? The coalition website.
Best way would be give us a phone call and call us, let us know that you're interested in signing the pledge, and we'll take care.
Very good. So, you can, sure, hold on one sec. I will obviously, I'll say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you and to everyone out in the community. Not all of you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah, but please, obviously there's a lot of good spirits out in the community this time of year. There's also a lot of heartache and pain for people. I've said many times my wife's as a marriage and family therapist, and this time of the year is a very busy time for her because people deal with loss and grief and pain, and the holidays are often reminders of those things. Earlier this evening, in that vein, we had we celebrated, after a 10-year absence, the best holiday lights and decorations in the city of Troy. We had a kind of a ceremony in here. Council members Erickson, Galt, and Brooks were here with me, and we presented certificates and saw a video of some of these holiday lights throughout the community. And I made mention there that studies have shown that holiday decorations are actually mood enhancers and do good things for mental health. So enjoy the holiday lights that are out there. They bring a lot of joy to people. We will have that video with some of our winners and honorable mentions up on our city YouTube tomorrow, and their city website will have a map of the addresses where you can go check out the lights. So they were some pretty good ones, and they all got individual awards. Finally, I was going through a Starbucks drive-thru a couple days ago, the Maple and Crooks, and I got up to the window, and the teller said to me, it's not a teller, it's not a bank, but the employee, the barista, I suppose, said, you're the 17th car. Every car in front of you has been paying for the car behind them, and they've been paying. Will you pay it forward and pay for the car that's behind you? I said, well, how much is their bill? First question, right? Because I only ordered a cup of coffee. But I, of course, did it, and I was the 17th person in a row to take that on and pay it forward and buy the person in front of me or behind me their order. So he did say the highest bill was $15 that somebody had paid. So I just thought that was pretty special and says a lot about our community that people are willing to do random acts of those kind of kindness, and especially this time of year. So thank you to the Starbucks at Crooks and Maple and whoever that barista was for putting that together, but I appreciated it. So that's it. Happy holidays, everyone. Councilmember Brooks?
Yes, I was just going to say on the note of having a safe holiday, I believe services such as Uber and Lyft do provide free services and free rides on New Year's Eve. So take advantage of that if you've had a little too much to drink and too much partying and fun that night. And yeah, like everyone said, have a wonderful and safe holiday season and a Happy New Year. And I'm excited to see everyone in the new year. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, next up on the agenda are reports. Does anybody have any comments on the reports this evening? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes, on N1, I just wanted to thank our city staff, especially our city assessor, Mr. Licari, for preparing that nice report that I asked for. So it was very thorough. It was very eye-opening. I think that going forward, I would like to see, I know that our city works hard on trying to attract more businesses and expand our businesses in Troy. I think that I hate to use the word imbalance, but it does seem to be that in recent years we've had way too much of the tax burden falling on our residences, and I would like to see us graduate or gravitate is the word I'm looking for, more towards having more businesses pick up some of the tax burden. And I'm not sure how we do that. I know that our city staff works hard on economic development, but I think we need to have some serious thought about how to shift that back so that some of these issues that are continually coming up with property owners and residential development, which I think is at least in part precipitated by the fact that residences bear a significant portion of the tax burden. So I'd like to, but again, just thank you to the staff for putting that report together and further clarifications. And this is helpful information, and especially to someone who's new to council and learning all this for the first time. So thank you.
Any other comments on reports? Councilmember Hoderick?
I just wanted to point to P2A, the city manager status report, one of the department reports that was provided to us, and thank the city manager who always, his staff should know, who always says, it's the staff that helps me make this happen. When you give him feedback of thanks for it. And I wanted to publicly thank staff for the continued emphasis on these deliverables and the updates on it. It's very helpful to us as city council members to be able to say out in the public to residents that talk to us, you know, yes, we're moving forward on this and this is the status. So it's very timely, very thorough and yet succinct all at the same time. I appreciate that. And you know, kind of in keeping with the end of year, start of the year comments, those that follow these meetings might have a sense of this, but if you don't always watch or maybe aren't tracking everything, there's been a tremendous onboarding process that has started for our new council members. And as we come together as a team, you know, you hear the dates set up for meetings that we're going to be having, the additional meetings in the new year. We've heard from our residents that they want planning and city council to work together to help represent some of the desires we're hearing from the residents in terms of development. That meeting got scheduled tonight. We're emphasizing continued training for ourselves going forward in terms of ethics. And the status report kind of emphasizes that. And if you're wanting to take a look at a review, that's a good thing to take a look at. And again, many thanks to City Manager Miller, City Attorney, all of staff for guiding us through the end of this year and into 2020. Thank you.
Any other comments on the reports? I will mention just briefly P3B is a card to Chief Nastasi from Suzanne Forbes-Dicker, who happens to be here this evening, but thanking our police department for all the good work they did with the Troy Citizens Academy and obviously all you do for keeping us safe. So thank you for a safe 2019, and we look forward to a safe 2020 with you and all your team. So thank you, and thank you, Suzanne, for writing in. That's very kind. All right. We do have a closed session this evening, so I will recess into closed session and we'll adjourn from in there. Thank you.